Welcome to the channel. My name's Drew, and I'm the Aspiring Master. All right, welcome to show number 1. This is take 3. Take 3. Show number 1, take 3. Been learning as I'm going. So welcome to the channel. I am Drew, and I am the Aspiring Master, and you may be asking yourself, what is the Aspiring Master? I'm just a guy aspiring to mastery of my own life, basically to be at peace with myself and to be in love with the rest of the world. That's where I'm hoping to get to at some point in this life. Right now I'm not there, but on this journey I've learned a whole bunch of stuff and I'm absolutely dying to share it with you. And this includes, opening up discussions with people, figuring things out, figuring out how we can actually move forward as the human race and as a species and cooperate and go towards love as we often say but don't really do. Today I'm going to be talking about politically correct language. So in order to do that, I first have to define what politically correct language is and what it sets out to do and why it doesn't accomplish that. Let's open up a dialogue and a conversation about political correctness, and so that's what this video is designed to do. So let's define what politically correct means or political correctness is. So I go on to dictionary.com and I find this definition when I type in politically correct. It says, the avoidance of forms of expression or action that are perceived to exclude, marginalize, or insult groups of people who are socially disadvantaged or discriminated against. Okay, so our key word here is perceived, and that means it can mean one of two things. So initially, perceive means that you see something, right? You actually see what's going on for the first time. So your sight is unveiled, basically. And the other perceived is interpreted. Basically, you interpret what's going on. So in this, if we say the avoidance of forms of expression or action that are interpreted to exclude, marginalize, or insult groups of people. So here's where we run into problems with political correctness because everybody's perception differs. We see it differently from all different angles. Okay, I can go into the languaging of it, but suffice it to say that one of our major problems with political correctness is who is doing the perceiving and why. We all have different perceptions. We all perceive things differently. And so therefore, we all have a different view. So somebody saying this excludes, marginalizes, or insults this group, and another person can say, no, it doesn't. And even a person in that group, two people in that group that they're saying are being insulted could have differing opinions on what that is. And so here's where we run into the biggest problem with political correctness, and that's that it is subject to interpretation. The second, first off, let's zap back just a bit and talk about what political correctness is supposed to be doing. I think my perception of political correctness is that it has a noble cause. It wants to eradicate prejudice and create a world that is more inclusive and patient with one another. And politically correct language is not going to work. By its nature, politically correct language separates. It forms a distinction. In order to be politically correct, you have to form a distinction or a judgment. So let's take a look at the word janitor. Back when I was going to school in the 80s, we called the custodians, or as we term them now, custodial engineers, janitors. And there was a perception that janitor was a lowly job, a bad word, that you were lower class being a janitor. There was a lot of that going around. Now, I never thought of it growing up as that, but there was lots of people that did. And I'm sure that there was lots of janitors out there that wanted to feel good about what they were doing, because I don't think that they did. And so what politically correct people did was say, okay, these guys are feeling on the low end and marginalized, so let's change their job title to custodian. Sounds cooler, right? Maybe they can have a little bit more pride in their work if they are a custodian rather than a janitor. Now, when you say the two words side by side and we take a look at how we attach feelings to it, because politically correct language is that we connect feelings to the words. And it's something that we do all the time. So when you're understanding language, you understand that people are actually talking feelings. They're not talking technical stuff generally. They're talking feelings. So when I say janitor, there's a feeling that I have attached to that. And so if I don't feel good about myself and about my life and about my social status, and I'm a janitor, and there are other people out there that go, oh, he's just a janitor, right? So they talk in a way that's derogatory. I may attach bad feelings to the word janitor. And so therefore, it feels like a bad job to be in. Well, it was a necessary job and they needed people in it, so they decided that they were going to change the language from janitor to custodian. And custodian makes you feel like you have, it's a bigger word, and it attaches a feeling of a bigger job. And now we've switched it from custodian to custodial engineer. And here's the problem. We're hiding the root cause of the depression that comes around these words. We're hiding the root cause. We're actually covering it all up. We're covering it with new paint so that people feel better. And this isn't going to bring us closer. This doesn't bring us closer. This just actually hides a problem. It's sort of like, you remember when you were a kid and you only ate, you only ate your vegetables because you had to, and sometimes you'd hide them under the couch, right? Or, if you had a dog, you fed them to the dog, which is great if the dog would eat them. But you didn't want to eat the vegetables, and so you hid them. And eventually, there's this pile of moldy vegetables under the couch, and the mold gets into the carpet, and then the carpet has to be pulled up. Okay, this is kind of an extreme, but I'm using it as an analogy. That's what we do when we pave over the words to make people feel better, instead of going to the root cause of trying to figure out how we can feel good about ourselves initially. How can we sponsor programs that allow us to feel better about ourselves, despite the job title? Okay? I could be a crew chief at McDonald's and still have pride in my job because I have pride in myself. And so what politically correct language does is it helps to cover that up. It helps to put a Band-Aid on a wound that's dripping blood everywhere, a really small Band-Aid. It closes the cut a bit, but around the edges you're going to get festering, and eventually it may turn into blood poison and could kill you. And I'm using that analogy as well to demonstrate that the more we cover things up, the worse they get. I deal with lots of people that say, I've been through this before, I did this before, I did all this work, and here it is again. And it's because we don't tackle the root of the problem. We keep trying to pave over it with nicer and nicer concrete to make the road better, but eventually it crumbles from underneath. And so this is one of the things that I think politically correct language does, is it really tries to cover up our own feelings of inadequacy about ourselves. Because if we felt good about ourselves, we wouldn't need politically correct language to protect us, right? And I'm not saying that we don't have that today, that we've got a society where we don't feel good about ourselves. I've been working on myself for a long time, since I was 15 years old. And I still don't feel good about myself sometimes. And I've worked a lot of years. I'm closing in on 50, and I've worked a lot of years on this person that I am right now. To say that we don't have the problem and to say that it's not systemic would be a lie. It is a systemic problem. It is something that we really have to look at. I don't think politically correct language is going to help at all. And it's not even that I don't think, I know that it's not, because I see the damage it's doing. Here's the problem. Politically correct language produces fear. We can't talk to each other now. It produces a barrier in communication. I've got a black friend, and we've talked a fair amount about political correctness, and she and I both agree that it is a tough thing to get past the barrier of fear that it builds around us. And when I say barrier of fear, I'm saying it's tough to talk to another black person, because what will I say that will set this person off, right? What words did I use or will I use that might offend this person? And so it's like we're constantly walking on eggshells. And having been in a dysfunctional relationship myself, where you're walking on eggshells all the time and you have to lie in order to be able to stop being confronted or having a confrontation, it sucks. It really does. That's what we're doing with politically correct language, is people become afraid to say anything. And so therefore they don't say anything, or they let other people get away with stuff that they wouldn't normally get away with. We just don't connect. We're afraid to connect. We're afraid to speak. Because who's going to take offense? And this is where politically correct language breaks down in its desire to create equality. Disguised in a really good idea, it actually promotes fear and separation by shutting people down and not allowing them to communicate properly. And I think that marginalized groups absolutely need help, but I don't think that they need the help that we're pretending to give them. And what politically correct language does is it's a fight to shift control. It stops us from coming together. So all in all, and I don't want to make this into a big long thing, because I can talk about it for hours. So let me go over some points. First, politically correct language is designed to help people feel better about themselves. Okay? So that was the janitor, custodian, custodial engineer. Okay? And second, it really is designed to stop discrimination of socially disadvantaged or other groups. It is designed to stop the languaging and theoretically stop the thinking behind it. Okay? It doesn't do either of these things. It actually does the opposite. So avoiding the issue of the janitor feeling good about himself before he starts a job. It doesn't matter what job that you're in. If you feel good about yourself, you're good at your job, and you do the best that you can. Okay, so it's about self-esteem, and it is an underlying issue. When we change the languaging and we pretend to feel better about ourselves, it just covers up the fact that we really haven't resolved those things in ourselves. It doesn't work. It's just just like anger, if you press it down and you just don't feel it, it comes back to haunt you tenfold later. And so that's what we're doing, politically correct language, in changing job titles to make people feel more important. Politically correct language, avoiding words so as people don't feel marginalized. Again, it's a cover-up. People feel marginalized. Part of the reason that people feel marginalized is because, yeah, people have been discriminated against and all of those bad things. But by placing the blame on everybody else and placing the responsibility on everybody else, the underlying issue never gets touched, which is low self-esteem. It is being taught that we are less than, being treated like we are less than, and trusting that other people's treatment of us is a reflection of ourselves. And so this is why politically correct language doesn't work, and why it generates separation and fear. Okay, so that's going to be it for this session of political correctness. Make some comments down below, and I will take a look at them and hopefully do another video about politically correctness. But stay tuned, we've got a bunch of other videos that I'm coming up. I'm going to be doing a series called The Agnostic in the Room, because I'm an agnostic and I've seen lots of people, atheists and theists, and their debates, and I'd like to sort of weigh in on an agnostic level and talk about agnosticism. I'm also going to be really looking at words. I've got a television show that I've recorded a number of episodes that we are doing some editing on, and of course these episodes that I recorded were on inferior cameras, and I have better cameras now, but I'm still going to edit them and I'm still going to put them out there because they had some massively cool insights into the words that we use, the main words that we use, why we use them. I'm also going to have a series on communication, on how to communicate, understanding that we have to understand what it is we're saying, and that's sort of an extension of the show. Doing, a series on how to think, and getting past our mental blocks, and moving forward with projects and things that we're doing. All right. This has been Drew, and I will see you next time here on The Aspiring Master.